I am 85 years old, and I wasted 60 years of my marriage trying to fix my wife. Let me tell you what really happened. You see, I thought love was about solving problems. I was a civil engineer. I built bridges that stood for a century. But the emotional connection in my own home, it collapsed brick by brick because I was too busy managing our life to actually live it with her. I see now how lonely a marriage after 60 can become when you're growing apart. The world saw Arthur and Eleanor, the stable, respectable couple. They didn't see the silent chasm between us. They didn't see the grief after loss that started long before she was gone. I lived with a quiet regret for decades. A man obsessed with financial security and perfect plans, while the love of my life faded right in front of me. I believed in healthy aging, in control, in systems. But when her mental health declined, my notebooks and schedules were useless. My tools broke in my hands. I spent my retirement trying to engineer her happiness. And in the end, all I had was a profound, aching regret for the wasted years. I was so afraid of aging alone that I created the very loneliness I feared. Stay with me. I'm going to tell you exactly where I went wrong and the one thing that finally, truly worked. I sat at our kitchen table, the morning sun hitting the polish just so. I had my notebook open, the week's menu and chore list neatly blocked out. Eleanor was by the sink, looking out at the garden. I was thinking, I said, tapping my pen. We could optimize the vegetable plot, rectangular beds, proper irrigation, increase yield by 40%. Easy. She didn't turn. She just watched the butterfly land on a lopsided purple flower. I like it as it is, she said, her voice soft. That was year 15. I saw a problem of efficiency. She saw, well, I didn't know what she saw. Not then. You see, I was a civil engineer. I built bridges. A good bridge doesn't just happen. It needs planning, maintenance, constant checking for stress. I applied the same principle to our life. I believe happiness was a structure you could build if you just had the right blueprint. Eleanor, she was the artist. She painted. She'd get lost for hours in her studio, and I'd find her with colors in her hair, smiling at a canvas of blurry shapes that somehow looked like joy. My job, as I saw it, was to build the stable frame so her colors could be safe inside it. That was the deal. I was the logical one. She was the soul. It made perfect sense to me. Let me tell you about the garden rebellion. That Saturday, I decided to help. Her flower patch was a chaos, things growing over each other, no rows, no scents. I got my tools. I carefully dug up every plant, laid them all on a tarp. I measured out neat, straight rows. I put each one back in its new, proper place. It took all morning. I felt good, productive. I glanced up at the kitchen window once. She was standing there, just watching. Her face, it wasn't angry. It was worse. It was a kind of quiet hurt, like I'd taken a song she was singing and rewritten the notes. I waved, smiled. She didn't wave back. She just turned away. I remember thinking, she'll see the order. She'll appreciate it. She never mentioned it. Not once. But she stopped spending afternoons out there. The years went on. Our son David grew up, moved out. The house got so quiet. I filled the silence with plans. I had charts for our retirement funds, itineraries for trips I thought we should take. Look, Eleanor, I'd say, spreading brochures. The logistics are all worked out. She'd nod, say, that looks nice, Arthur. But her eyes were somewhere else. We talked about the weather. We talked about David. We didn't talk about the quiet.
The distance felt like a fog in the rooms. I thought, if I can just plan better, manage better, the fog will lift. So I made more plans. I tried to fix it. That was my only tool.
Then the diagnosis. That cold room. The doctor said the words, probable early onset Alzheimer's. My mind, my engineer's mind, it just lit up. Crisis mode. I pulled out my notebook, always had my notebook, and started writing. Stages, medications, care schedules. I asked about clinical trials, cognitive therapies. I was building a dam in my head against this flood. Then I felt her hand. Her fingers were cold, and they were trembling. She was gripping my hand. She wasn't looking at the doctor. She was looking right at me. Her eyes were so wide, so scared. It was a pure animal terror. And I patted her hand and kept writing. I thought she needed me to be strong, to have the answers. I mistook her touch for a request to redouble my efforts. Oh, I was such a fool. I transformed our home. I became a project manager for her decline. Color-coded charts on the fridge for pills, meals, bathroom breaks, a rigid daily routine. I believed if I could control the environment, I could control the disease. I could keep her safe. She followed the schedule. She'd take the pills when I pointed to the chart, but she grew quieter. The light in her, the one that used to get colors in her hair, it was guttering, like a candle in a draft. Each time I said, time for your walk or pills at 3 o'clock, I saw her flinch a little. She was fading, and I was too busy building my system to really see it. The first crack in my system was our son. David came over. He said I needed help, that I couldn't do it all. We were in the driveway arguing. My voice was loud. I was talking about resilience, about protocol. I have a system, David, I said. And then we both saw her, Eleanor. She was in her nightgown, barefoot in the cold. She was standing in the middle of her old wildflower patch, now just winter dirt. She was just staring at the ground, lost. She didn't know where she was. In that moment, I didn't see my patient on a schedule. I saw my wife, my Eleanor, and she was going somewhere I couldn't reach with any chart. I felt a shame so hot it stole my breath. My arguing stopped. The fight went out of me. David put his arm around my shoulders, and I just stood there, watching her, finally seeing. David led her back inside, and I followed, my notebook feeling stupid and heavy in my hand. I made her tea, but my hands were shaking. She looked at me over the rim of the mug, and for a second, it was her again, just Eleanor. She said, "You were shouting." I said I was sorry. She said, "It's cold outside." And then she was gone again, her eyes drifting to the window. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there listening to her breathe, thinking about her bare feet in the dirt. The next morning, I did my routine. I made breakfast. I got the pill organizer. It was a blue plastic thing with little compartments for each day. I slid it across the table to her with my coffee. "Right on schedule, dear," I said. She looked at it. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were clear and sad. Slowly, she pushed the pill box back toward me. It scraped on the wood. Her voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "I don't want your systems, Arthur," she whispered. "I just want you." I just stared. I had no answer, no plan for that. The words hung there in the sunlit kitchen, and they broke something open in me. All my charts, my schedules, they were just walls I'd built, and she was on the other side, alone. I didn't know what to do. So for once, I did nothing. I put the pill box away. I didn't say anything. We ate our toast in a silence that felt different. Not empty, but waiting. That afternoon, I didn't look at the clock. I just went and sat beside her on the old sofa. I didn't talk. I didn't try to remind her what day it was. I just took her hand. She let me. She was looking out at the garden. Then she started to hum. It was a tune I didn't know, maybe from her childhood. It was shaky and soft. I just listened. I held her hand and listened. I didn't try to name the song or fix the moment. I just sat there. And you know what? It was the most peaceful I'd felt in years. Maybe she felt it too, because after a while, she leaned her head on my shoulder, just for a minute. The weight of it was the realest thing I had felt in a decade. I didn't throw the schedules away that day, but I stopped showing them to her. I kept the pills in the kitchen drawer. I'd just bring her one with a glass of water when it was time. Sometimes she'd take it. Sometimes she'd turn her head away, and I'd say, okay, maybe later. That was new for me, saying okay instead of finding a way to win. It was hard. Letting go of control felt like falling. Some days were worse. She'd get confused and frightened, and my old instincts would roar back. I'd want to explain, to logic her out of it, but I'd bite my tongue. I'd just sit with her in the confusion until it passed. I'd hold her hand and say, I'm right here. That's all. Not, it's Tuesday, or you're safe at home, just, I'm right here. It was all I had left to give, and somehow it seemed to be enough. More than my systems ever were. The light in her eyes didn't come back, not really, but the fear. I think the fear got a little smaller on those days, for both of us. The hardest day was a Tuesday. She didn't know me. She looked right at me, her eyes wide and panicked, and she asked, who are you? Where is my husband? That was the breaking point. I tried my old tools. I said, it's me, Arthur. You're Arthur. I showed her our wedding photo. She just shook her head and started to cry, a small, scared sound. I called David. He came over and she went to him like he was a safe harbor. She knew him. She didn't know me. I sat in the kitchen while he calmed her. I looked at my hands, these hands that had built bridges, that had drawn so many plans. They were useless. I was devastated. Honestly, I felt broken. I had failed. That night, after David left and she was asleep, I went into her studio. I hadn't been in there for years. It still smelled of her, of turpentine and chalk. I turned on the light. Her easel had a blank canvas. Her brushes were clean, put away. It was a tomb. I opened a drawer. That's when I found the sketchbook. I sat on a stool and I opened it, and I saw them. Page after page of me. Me reading the paper. Me fixing a faucet. Me laughing from a long time ago. The early ones were so full of life, every line sure and dark. But as I turned the pages, the drawings changed. The lines got hesitant. The shading got lighter. In the last few, I was just a faint outline, a ghost. You could barely see me. I stared at that ghost of myself. That's when I realized what I'd done. I was wrong about everything, my whole life. I thought I was maintaining the bridge, but I was the one who had dismantled it, piece by piece, with every correction, every schedule, every time I chose the plan over the person. She hadn't faded from me. I had faded from her. I had made myself disappear. The full cost hit me then, sitting in that dusty room. It wasn't just the lost years, though that hurt. It was that I had let her be lonely. I had let her be lonely inside our marriage, inside our home. I had given her solutions when she just needed my hand. I had given her a blueprint when she just needed my eyes on hers. The disease took her memories, but I had taken her partner long before that. I had been so busy fixing the life around us that I forgot to live in it with her. That was the permanent loss. I could never get those years back. I could never give her back the husband she had drawn in those bright early pictures. I remember one morning not long after. She was having a good day, a clear day. We were having tea. She looked at me and she said, Arthur, you look tired. Her voice was soft, like her old voice. I said, I am tired, Ellie. She reached out and she touched my cheek, just for a second. Her hand was cool. She said, you always tried so hard. Then her eyes clouded again and she looked away. I'll never forget what she said. You always tried so hard. It wasn't a compliment. It was an epitaph. For the first time I heard it. I heard the cost of all that trying. That was the first crack of understanding. It didn't fix anything. It didn't bring her back, but it let the truth in. I stopped fighting the disease then. I just loved the woman who was left. I stopped trying to make her remember and started remembering for both of us. I'd tell her stories about our son, about our trips, even about the silly garden. She'd listen. Sometimes she'd smile. Sometimes she'd just hum. And I'd sit there, holding her ghost of a hand, finally understanding that my presence was the only thing I had ever really needed to give. And I'd sit there, holding her ghost of a hand, finally understanding that my presence was the only thing I had ever really needed to give. Here's what I learned sitting in that silence. I was wrong about love. I thought it was a structure. I thought it was a bridge you built once and then maintained forever with logic and effort. But love isn't a bridge. It's the water underneath. You can't engineer it. You can only be in it. You can only let it hold you. All those years, I was so busy checking for cracks in the concrete that I never noticed we were standing in different rivers. My solutions were my way of saying, the way you are is a problem. Her silence was her way of disappearing from the constant repair. That's the heart of it, the mistake. I thought our happiness depended on fixing what was broken in her messiness, her impracticality, her sadness. But the only thing broken was my own need to have everything under control. The marriage didn't need saving from her wildflowers or her fading mind. It needed saving from my relentless, invisible blueprint. I was the problem I refused to see. And the fix, when it finally came, wasn't another action. It was a cessation. It was putting down the notebook. It was the courage to fail at managing things and to succeed just once at being still. Love, in the end, isn't something you do. It's something you are. A quality of attention. A decision to stop building and start beholding. So here is my direct advice for anyone my age, anyone who sees a partner and sees a project. Put the blueprint down. Today, not tomorrow. Your hands are probably holding one right now, a plan to improve them, a silent criticism, a schedule for their happiness. Open your hands. Let it fall. Your job is not to fix your spouse. Your job is to witness your spouse, to look at them right now without a plan. Don't perform. Just be there. In the quiet kitchen, in the messy garden, in the doctor's awful office. Your presence, your simple, undemanding presence is the most powerful medicine you will ever offer. It's also the hardest thing to give because it requires you to be vulnerable, to admit you don't have the answers. Do it anyway. Ask less, what should we do? And more, how are you right now? And then listen. Really listen. Not for a problem you can solve, but for the human being you can meet. You still have time. Maybe not years, maybe not even months of clarity, but you have this afternoon. You have this evening. That is enough. A single moment where you choose connection over correction can change the weather of a lifetime. It won't erase the past. It didn't for me. The regret is part of me now, a quiet companion. But it taught me that hope isn't about a happy ending. It's about a true connection, however brief. In our last year, Eleanor rarely knew my name, but sometimes, when I held her hand, she would settle. Her breathing would slow. She felt safe, not because I had engineered her safety, but because I was finally, simply, there. That is a realistic hope. You can offer that. You can be that harbor. not by trying harder, but by trying differently, by being, not doing. If this old man's confession means anything to you, do something for me. Don't just let it sit. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notifications. These stories matter, and more are coming. Give this video a like. It lets others, who might be drowning in their own blueprints, find it. And in the comments, I'd like you to answer this. What is one tool you know you need to lay down? Just name it. That's the first step. Share this with your spouse or with a friend who's trying too hard to fix their marriage. Sometimes seeing our own reflection in someone else's story is what finally makes us look up.